You know, I've said this before, but 80s horror movies, even the really bad ones, all have this very specific but difficult to articulate aesthetic that I have yet to see replicated. There are a lot of movies that have come so close to that feeling, but it never quite gets there for me. I think a lot of it has to do with today's cameras. Everything just looks too good, too clear, and you can actually see what's going on in the night shots. Growing up, us younger kids were only allowed to use the VHS player because you can't scratch up VHSs, and trying to watch old horror movies on a VHS was a challenge. Oh my god, those scenes that took place at night. The characters would be like, oh my god, Jason's coming, and then the camera would pan over to this. And they'd scream, and we'd be like, if you say so. Funny enough, the closest anything has ever come to capturing that feeling, for me anyways, aren't even movies. They're video games. There's Blood Wash, Killer Frequency, and pretty much anything Puppet Combo comes out with. I wonder why that is. What is your secret, indie game developers? House is a 1985 horror comedy starring William Catt, directed by Steve Miner, and produced by Sean S. Cunningham, with music by Harry Manfredini. Horror fans will definitely recognize some of these names from a certain iconic 80s horror franchise. Manfredini has done way too many horror movie soundtracks to count here, including A Talking Cat. Cunningham created and produced the Friday the 13th movies, along with the Last House on the Left remake and My Boyfriend's Back, which I remember watching and liking, but it's been a long time, so as far as I know, it could be terrible. Miner also directed a few Friday the 13th movies, along with Halloween Water, Lake Placid, the Day of the Dead remake, and Soul Man. Yeah, that Soul Man. The scariest movie on that list. William Catt you probably recognize from the movie Carrie, and look at that hair. He's also done more than a few of those direct-to-video horror movies you probably saw in a dollar store. And I know it's not a horror movie, well, not in the usual sense, but he was in Jawbreaker, a movie I personally love, and some unknown show called Greatest American Hero. Believe it or not, I'm walking on it. I never thought I could feel so free. The movie opens on a delivery boy bringing groceries to the owner of this freaking gorgeous house. Listen, I don't give a shit if this house is haunted. I will gladly live with the evil denizens of this property. If I get to live in a Victorian-style house with antique furniture, a garden, and a pool that looks like that...
Hello, Scary. Come on in.
The kid knocks on the door and notices it's open and calls out to Mrs. Hooper, and... it even has a peacock stained glass accent window. I want this house. I want this house.
Hello?
Also, much respect to this kid. Most underpaid employees would have just left the groceries in the foyer. Oh, she has a foyer. But not this kid. Then again, it might have just been an excuse to see the inside of the house, because you know the neighborhood kids and probably some adults had some crazy made-up stories about what goes on in there. And on top of everything else, she paints rad as hell art and hangs it up in her own damn house. I want this woman's life. I didn't mean it like that. And how the hell did he not see Mrs. Hooper hanging in the middle of the room? At Mrs. Hooper's funeral, we meet her nephew and main character, Roger. He's divorced, his son went missing, he's a horror writer and a Vietnam vet, and yes, all of that is relevant to the story.
Elizabeth wasn't crazy, Roger. Just wasn't like her to go and do something like that.
Yeah, because the only reason people commit suicide is because they're crazy and not because of other factors going on with their lives.
Now my wife, she's crazy.
Anyway, do you want to see one of the most jarring and possibly funniest transitions I've ever seen? Perfection, no notes. While at a signing for his book Blood Dance, we get a glimpse of his fan base, which I am jealous of. Do you have any idea how hard it is to get that wide a range of audience? I mean, damn, he even got Billy Joel, James McAvery, John List, and Jonah Jett as fans. His fan base is even more impressive when you find out that his first book was called Sort of Bad.
Can you tell me what your next book is going to be about?
It's about my personal experiences in Vietnam.
Great.
Why is Righteous Gemstones over here being so dismissive? I'd argue that the Vietnam War is a far more nightmarish horror story because it actually happened. So sorry, Francis Buxton, that the Vietnam War isn't as interesting as Sword Bad. Back at Roger's apartment, we get to see some classic 80s TV dinners. I live for little glimpses of the past like this, including the old microwave and this goddamn brick house of a computer. Come on, Roger, you're a writer. You need something eye-catching like, he begged me to kill him. Look, I'm not a writer, okay? But I do read a lot, and interesting or unusual titles are what gets me to pick up a book. Roger, having clear writer's block, calls the FBI, I think. He says agent. And this agent is so annoyed that this worried father is calling about his missing son's case to see if there's any updates. What an asshole.
Hello?
Roger,
Yeah?
what's that noise?
Real smooth, Roger. And this is a trope that I actually really enjoy and kind of miss from movies and TV shows.
I'm sorry. This poker game's getting a little out of hand.
Who's there?
Just make up names. She's not gonna fact check you. Just, oh, Mike Crow and Servo came with Dr. Forrester. See?
I'm calling from the awards party. I lost him.
Oh, gee, I'm sorry to hear that.
How long has her son been missing? Because she seems way more upset about losing an award than her child.
How's this?
Roger,
Come on, babe, smile.
She's on the fucking phone. Can you give her a minute to finish up the conversation before you grab at her for pictures? She should have elbowed him. That night, Roger has a nightmare about his son, which triggers him to pack and return to the house he grew up in.
You know, I didn't expect to hear from you again so soon. I just got the for sale sign up yesterday.
While Roger walks the ground, we finally get a glimpse of the circumstances surrounding Jimmy's disappearance. Coming out of the flashback, the realtor takes Roger to a shed that doubled as his aunt's art studio.
Say, whatever happened to this uncle?
Oh, he was diving for abalone off of Point Reyes. Got it.
Oops, sorry about that.
You guys are way too calm for what just happened there. And I had to Google it, but apparently shooting a spear gun out of water is really dangerous for both people involved there. Apart from possibly destroying the gun, the kickback out of water can be so severe it can knock you out or potentially kill you, while the accuracy of the spear is diminished greatly while having much more force short range. This scene could have been an accidental murder-suicide, and they just move on.
She must have been working on this right before she died. Gives me the creeps. Morbid little woman, wasn't she?
Excuse me, that is an amazing painting, especially the clock. Look at the detail. How dare you besmirch child-free feral ants with rad hobbies?
That's the closet in her bedroom.
It's the same room where she hung her, where she passed away.
This guy needs some glasses so he can read the fucking room.
You know, she thought this house was haunted.
Get out of here. You're kidding, aren't you?
This raises a good question not answered in the movie. Roger grew up in that house, but he didn't see any of the hauntings that the aunt did? Why did the house leave baby Roger alone while driving the aunt to suicide? We then return to the flashback of Jimmy's disappearance, where Roger insists to two uninterested cops he saw Jimmy in the pool.
telling you, Roger, it was the house. Will you shut up?
Touchy.
Roger announces he's no longer selling the house, using it as a way to hopefully break through his writer's block, which goes about as well as you'd expect.
And Elizabeth.
This house knows everything about you. Leave while you can.
No!
Again, he grew up in this house. How did you never see anything? A lot of this shit is kind of hard to miss. Don't think Valium's gonna do a whole lot of good with the ghosts there, Raj, but at least you'll be able to sleep through any of the hauntings. Roger goes to sleep in his childhood room. You're telling me this huge house only has 2 bedrooms? And wakes up completely fine with no issues about seeing his dead aunt the night before. Not even a little bit sleep deprived. You think he'd dwell on it just a little bit, but again, look at the house. Roger in his hilariously deep V-neck sweater meet his neighbors, a hot Swedish chick, and...
Evening, everybody.
Yeah, George Wendt is in this, and he plays the comic relief neighbor, Harold.
Woman lived here before you was nuts. Biggest bitch under the sun.
She was my aunt.
Heart of gold, though.
I think that might be my favorite line exchange in this whole movie. Harold invites Roger over for the game, to which Roger not so subtly tells him he's a writer and wants to be left alone to write.
I don't believe this. This can't be, right? Roger. Roger Cobb, right?
I don't understand why Roger would mention he's a writer if he wants to be left alone and not recognized.
I'm your biggest fan. Right here. Oh, whoops. It's a little.
See, maybe it's me, but if I were a famous writer and somebody showed me one of my books that they read so much it was literally falling apart, I would be genuinely moved.
Would you mind autographing this for me?
Oh, you bet. You got a pen?
Well,
Gee, if only one of you guys were close to your houses so you can go grab one real quick.
Lord help me.
That night, Roger finally sits down to write about his time in the war. I apologize in advance if I get any army rankings or terminology incorrect. I had to Google it, and it was really confusing. In Roger's platoon, we meet their, I don't know, shift lead, and Roger's buddy, Ben.
All right. Hey, pipe down. Man, what are you doing?
Excuse me, that is the sound of a kookaburra, which is a bird native to Australia, not Vietnam. And yes, I know this has nothing to do with this scene, but if you think I want to point out a bird call in an incorrect region, you must be new here. Hi. After loudly being chastised, you'd think they'd want to be quiet. Big Ben notices a grenade and pushes Roger out of the blasting range before becoming Rambo.
Daddy?
I get that he did see his aunt, so he's probably just chalking this up as another hallucination brought on by PTSD and stress. But he doesn't even really blink at seeing his missing child in the window. Even if it is just a hallucination, I think if I saw somebody who was missing or possibly dead in my window, I would still be disturbed. Rogers kind of looks annoyed his writing was interrupted. Roger once again hears noises coming from upstairs, so him and his deep V-neck go to investigate, because that's always a good idea in a haunted house. Oh boy, here comes! You gorgeous darling, and God do I love practical effects. The creature is a little difficult to clearly make out during this scene, but when paused, you can see exactly what it represents. It's a gruesome amalgamation of bodies as if melted together. It also has barbed wire wrapped around its body, what looks like a chamber and butt of a machine gun, I think? But my God, look at this thing. What a gorgeous creation this is. Frankly, I think something like that should be in a museum, but it's either in somebody's private collection or more than likely it was trashed after the movie wrapped. It is such a shame, man. Roger manages to get the door closed, suffering a few gashes from the creature, then I guess just goes to bed, because the next scene is the following morning. Man, Roger just does not let anything get to him, does he? At least it seems it has no power against a wooden closet door. That's convenient. I really wish the movie would have shown that Roger, for whatever reason, can't leave the property, because it would make more sense why he doesn't go screaming out the front door after that. I thought it was implied that he can't leave the property, but towards the end of the movie, that theory gets blasted out of the water. I mean, it makes sense. His aunt was a recluse who never left the house, even in death. And when Roger met Norm, he's still on the property line, and we don't ever see him leave after he stepped foot in the house. He even orders camera equipment instead of going to Sears or whatever and picking them up. So it's a total bummer that's not the case. Like, it was right there, right in front of them. You'd think that he would watch the clock a little bit closer, considering he was waiting for midnight, but... Norm! Why are you just walking into people's houses unannounced? Like, what if he was having alone time with a JCPenney catalog? Roger tells Harold about losing his son and the reason he's in the house in the first place, then asks him a very important question.
Do you believe in ghosts? In the closet upstairs, I saw something.
You sure you're just not imagining this?
Does this look like imagination?
Harold is understandably incredulous of the whole story, decides Roger might be losing his marbles, and excuses himself, but not before swiping Roger's phone book. You know, despite Harold having some obvious boundary issues, he does seem like a genuinely caring person. He's friendly to Roger even when he's being kind of a standoffish dick, brings food to him, listens to Roger's issues without any visible judgment, and when recognizing something is wrong, instead of treating Roger like a leper, Harold tries to help, albeit in a sneaky manner.
Hello?
Sandy Cobb, please.
Speaking. Who's this?
This is Harold.
Harold tells Sandy he's worried about Roger and explains he thinks he might be suffering PTSD flashbacks.
I think you ought to come up here and check the guy out.
I can't.
All right. Don't worry about anything, I guess. I'll just be sure to give you a call if something bad happens.
Was that intentional shade by Harold, or was that him putting his foot in his mouth? Sandy attempts to call Roger, but he ignores the phone as he delves deeper into his writing.
Fitzsimmons, you walk in point. Like hell I am.
Oh, what point?
It's nice to see somebody around here's got some guts.
I'm sorry, but I do not blame that guy for telling the shift lead to fuck off. For those of you who don't know, because I certainly didn't, walking point means you're leading the team first through hostile, unexplored territory. And this dude has some real nerve calling out two people for being rightfully scared, but I don't see him volunteering. Big Ben and Roger are tasked with taking point as they slowly make their way carefully through the jungles before Big Ben, out of line of sight of the rest of the party, decides to screw with Roger. You know, because this is the best time to pull a prank on your buddy.
Yoo-hoo! Charlie!
Roger becomes overwhelmed and stops writing before noticing a toy car roll into the foyer. I was alive for a second, now I'm dead, go away. Roger, it is stuck to the wall. Just take a couple steps back and you're good. It can't reach you. Roger, instead of just leaving the room and forgetting about it like he did with the upstairs closet monster, goes into the shed to fetch a fucking shotgun. To shoot a stationary creature that can't move from the wall it's on, mind you. Roger drops a couple shells while panicking before making his way back to the cute little swordfish who did nothing but flail on the wall. God, I always hated this scene. Why did you have to add the sad crying from the swordfish, man? After his fish aside, Roger tries to medicate himself when the garden tools politely knock on the bathroom door. Never mind the fact they had to have opened at least 2 other doors to reach him. Maybe they just didn't want to be rude, just in case he was on the mint-colored toilet. Did you see that? Seriously? You know how long it took us to get through the other doors? We don't have hands, asshole.
Hi.
Sandy.
I was worried about you, Roger.
Hey, Sandy, why are you not at all alarmed that Roger's holding a shotgun? A loaded shotgun? And here we see one of my favorite creatures of all time from horror movies, the witch. I genuinely love this character. It's so gross.
Sandy.
Indeed. As a kid, this thing terrified me, but as an adult, I cannot get past the massive honkers they gave the witch. Roger freaks out, understandably, shooting the creature in the chest, causing it to lurch backwards onto the porch.
Oh my God.
Harold calls the police, not seeing Sandy at the angle his window is facing, while Roger panics, thinking he murdered his ex-wife, then hides the body under the stairs when he hears sirens approaching. Real smooth, Raj.
Hey, wait a minute. I know you, don't I? You're Roger Cobb, right?
You wouldn't happen to be the same Roger Cobb who wrote Blood Dance, would you?
And you wouldn't happen to be the same Creighton Duke that compared Jason Voorhees to a little girl sticking a hot dog through a donut, would you?
Jason Voorhees.
Well, that makes me think of a little girl in a pink dress sticking a hot dog through a donut.
What the fuck was that even supposed to mean? The cops, learning that Roger is famous, decide he no longer needs to be held accountable for discharging a weapon in a neighborhood and invite themselves into the house while telling Harold to piss off. It should be noted when Harold called the cops, he reported it as a possible suicide attempt, so of course the cops are going to treat him like a pest.
What are you doing?
Just looking at this thing here on the wall.
My aunt was an artist.
Yeah, I guess.
I don't understand why everybody in this movie is so dismissive of these paintings. They're incredible. Like, even if you don't like the subject, you got to admit that there's talent there.
My gun.
What about your gun? Is there something wrong, Mr. Cobb?
No.
Roger hustles the 3 men out the door before retreating back into the house to find the body of Sandy missing. So now he has to go find an armed, large-breasted demon roaming around the property. Man, Roger is having quite the week. ghosts supposed to be working together? Did they not recognize their coworker? Roger decides that maybe leaving a rotting corpse of a demon in the doorway of his aunt's room isn't the greatest idea, so he bags up the body and starts to bury it in the backyard before being startled by someone in the pool.
Did I scare you?
What is with these neighbors just wandering onto this property without asking? We've seen 3 people do it by now, but at least the delivery boy had a reason to go into the house. Harold and Tanya here just kind of invite themselves.
What's under the plastic? A sapling?
A sapling, yes, it's an apricot tree.
Oh.
Apricot saplings always look like bodies wrapped in plastic, right? Dumbass. Tanya flirts with Roger for a few minutes while Roger tries to keep the hand of the creature from grabbing Tanya.
I can also tell when a man wants to play. We should get together soon.
Absolutely.
Oh, I love this scene. Roger finishes cutting up the creature and burying the pieces in not so subtle holes in the yard. Yeah, that's not suspicious at all.
Good God. Drop it. Good dog. Stay. Stay! Stay!
Here's yet another scene I thought was implying that Roger couldn't leave the property. Instead of chasing after the dog and keeping it in sight, he goes inside to find car keys, which he doesn't get a chance to find due to a knock at the front door.
Hi. Ready to play? This is my son Robert, and he really loves to play.
Tanya, without asking or even giving any notice, pushes her son on Roger to babysit, to which he initially tries to decline until he sees the creature's hand the dog ran off with earlier is now attached to her son Robert's back.
Here we are, Mom.
Is everything okay?
Oh, yeah, Robert just had to go potty, but we took care of everything.
Roger brings the kid back to Tanya, who did not see anything weird about Roger's behavior, then leaves her son with a stranger to babysit him, an unwilling stranger to boot. Apparently, she's unaware that the last little boy he was watching vanished. Yeah, it's the house, but she doesn't know that.
My sister is an only child and you abused her. I can never forgive you for that.
I can't hide the fact that I've been a male prostitute my entire life, Jimmy.
Her sister was an only child and he's been a male prostitute his whole life? Robert starts crying because the movie within the movie is so terrible and looks directly at the camera at his real mom, who's obviously standing right behind it.
Want to buzz off? Huh? You want something else to play with? Yeah. How about a nice plastic bag?
God damn, Roger, I know kids crying can be annoying, but it's not his fault his mom's a bad parent. Roger lays Robert down to sleep on possibly the most uncomfortable looking couch in the house, then once again returns to his writing.
Anything's possible when you're in love.
Oh god, thank you. I felt like I was having a stroke trying to comprehend the dialogue in that movie. I mean, if getting shot multiple times is what Big Ben was aiming for, he's not wrong. Roger comes out of his flashback only to realize Robert is no longer asleep on the couch and is nowhere to be seen.
Robert!
Roger follows them in to see Robert being zooped up the chimney by, I think they're supposed to be childlike creatures, and a game of tug-of-war commences until they finally let Robert go. And we never see those things again, which is kind of a bummer. After Roger returns the kid to his irresponsible hot mom, he somehow manages to convince Harold to come over to the house in the middle of the night, alone. This is how you end up in a hole putting lotion in a basket. Roger, desperate for somebody else to see what he's been seeing, convinces Harold the thing he saw in the closet was actually a huge raccoon, which he trapped and needs Harold's help to catch it. And Harold just goes with it. He's really too nice for his own good, because that could have gone south real fast. It's also kind of crappy of Roger to trick Harold into this. I understand he needs someone to see what he sees, but maybe, I don't know, use the 30 different video cameras you have set up to prove there's a literal monster in your closet? As predicted, the monster appears at midnight, scaring the shit out of Harold, who shoots the monster with the spear gun. It yanks the spear gun out of Harold's hand, which tangles around Roger's feet and drags him into the closet.
Don't what? No! Don't worry, Roger! I'll hold on to you if it's the last thing I do.
Phenomenal teamwork, guys. High five. This does make me wonder if Roger's aunt saw different looking monsters when she lived there. It seems this house runs on Silent Hill rules, where the monsters all relate to who it is they're haunting. It would be interesting to see what the house used against the aunt to cause her to finally end things. The napalm monster drags Roger into the past, where he finds Big Ben collapsed after being shot multiple times.
I'm dying, Roger. Kill me.
Roger tries to fulfill Big Ben's request but can't bring himself to kill his friend, and while Roger runs back for help, the Viet Cong soldiers find Big Ben and drag him away.
Roger! I'll get you for this!
Roger manages to escape back through the door he was dragged into to find Harold passed out drunk.
Roger, it's really you. Thank God.
I don't think Roger appreciates the significance of Harold still being there. How many people would have ran screaming out of that house and not return? Harold not only stayed, he armed himself and waited before he got drunk and passed out, but it's been a hard day for him. He gets a pass for that. Roger takes Harold home, which completely bombed my theory that the house wouldn't let him leave the property in one single scene. Again, they had it right there, gift wrapped, and they didn't even know. After the adrenaline dissipates and he has a moment to sit still, Roger has an epiphany and goes to look at his aunt's unfinished painting. I didn't mention it before because I didn't want to spoil the reveal, but all of the paintings in the house we see are vague representations of what Roger goes through, which is a nice touch, but unfortunately a lot of them are only shown briefly, and at times are out of focus or cut off, so you can't really see the whole painting. However, I did manage to track down the name of the artist, Richard Hescock, and full clear pictures of his painting from the website rogercobbshouse.com. That's also where I found out he didn't paint the main piece. That was actually painted by Bill Stout. Roger, realizing that his aunt was trying to tell him something through her paintings, runs to the bathroom and breaks the medicine cabinet mirror, revealing a dark, deep chasm. Well, that's what you get for throwing trash in their dimension. While delving deeper into the abyss, Roger's attacked by a skeleton bat thing who steals his boomstick and shoots Roger's rope, plummeting him down into the waters of his memories of Vietnam.
Oh my God.
I want to go home.
Roger frees Jimmy while an unknown man shoots at them, and they both escape back into the waters where they surface in the pool where Jimmy disappeared. And that's the movie house.
Sucker!
Oh, come on, you know they weren't going to leave that Big Ben thread untied.
Big Ben. No, it's your fairy godmother.
Plus, he's a cool-looking monster and kind of funny.
Tortured me for weeks.
Would have died for you, Ben.
Well, now's your chance.
No!
Ah, so Roger is banking on Big Ben's weakness to be doors, just like the garden tools. Let's see how that works out. Ah, poorly, just as expected. Roger instructs Jimmy to get out of the house and get help, but because the house and/or Big Ben know Jimmy is Roger's weakness, it won't let the kid leave. As if this poor kid has not been through enough.
You're pissing me off, Roger.
I love Big Ben. He has the best lines in the movie, and they pop into my head just randomly.
Roger, you hit like a little girl.
Roger races upstairs to retreat back into the abyss, only to see it's just returned to a regular medicine cabinet, so he resorts to trying to crawl out the bathroom window.
Damn, come back from the grave and ran out of ammunition.
Benny boy, I understand that you're pissed off at Roger, but have you seen yourself? You're fucking cool looking. Just hang out for a couple of years for the internet to really take off and you'll find your people. Roger makes it to the roof where his stunt double with much puffier hair re-enters the house through the attic and is immediately found and attacked by Big Ben. Roger hears Jimmy calling for him, but he can't pinpoint where his voice is coming from until...
Think you're funny, Roger?
Bitch, I'm adorable.
Roger, finally overcoming his fear of Ben and his past trauma, realizes the house is losing its power over him, making Big Ben unable to harm Roger or Jimmy.
No! Stop! No, Roger, no! No! I'll get you for this!
The grenade goes off, exploding Ben and half the side of the house, alerting Harold while Sandy pulls up in a taxi. I really appreciate that the movie shows us that he didn't actually kill Sandy, just the thing that was parading around in her skin. And that's the end, for real this time. How the hell is Roger going to explain how he found his kid and what happened to the house to Sandy? Or the cops?
Touchy.
I was worried when revisiting this movie I wouldn't find it as enjoyable as I did when I was younger, but I am happy to report I still genuinely love this movie. The plot, set design, music, characters, and practical effects hold up pretty well in my opinion. I love all the monster designs, and I love how it stays firmly in the horror realm without skewing too far into comedy. The majority of the time anyway.
My sister is an only child and you abused her.
Party on, my ghoulies. I will see you next time.